The damage report on this Crown Vic after the Freedom 500 tells you one clear thing right away. These cars are built like tanks, but even tanks show scars after a war like this. This was not a clean race with small bumps and light contact. This was a 27-car field going full speed on a tight track where contact was constant, and by the end of it, almost every panel on the car had something to say. The right side of the car took some of the hardest hits. You can clearly see long streaks of blue paint running across the quarter panel, which is not random at all. That blue is from the outer wall, meaning the car slammed into the wall multiple times, not just once. At least 2 heavy impacts happened on the back straight, and both were strong enough to leave deep marks across a large section of the body. When a car hits the wall at racing speed, even something like 70 to 90 miles per hour, the force spreads across the entire panel. That is why the scratches are not small or localized. They stretch from the rear quarter toward the door area, showing how the car dragged along the wall after impact. The phrase road rash fits perfectly here. It is not just one dent or one scratch. It is layers of scraping where the metal has been worn down bit by bit. If you look closely, that kind of damage usually means the car stayed in contact with the wall for more than a second or two. In racing terms, that is a long time. Even half a second at that speed can destroy a panel, so anything longer means serious grinding. One of the most obvious missing parts is the right side mirror. That is completely gone. Losing a mirror in a race like this is more than just cosmetic damage. It changes how the driver makes decisions. Without that mirror, there is no clear view of what is happening on the right side. That means every move becomes a guess or depends on instinct. In a race with 27 cars where drivers are constantly going side by side, that is a big disadvantage. Still, the car kept going, which shows how much these vehicles can take without failing completely. The tyres tell another part of the story. By the end of the race, they were almost completely worn out. You can imagine the amount of friction and heat those tyres went through. In a race with constant turning, sliding and contact, tyres do not just wear down evenly. They get shredded from aggressive driving and from rubbing against other cars. If a tyre starts with around 8 to 10 millimeters of tread and ends close to 0, that means it went through extreme stress over a short time. And this race was not hours long like professional endurance races. This kind of wear happened in a much shorter window, which makes it even more intense. There was also a moment where the impact felt so strong that it seemed like the radiator might have been destroyed. That kind of concern usually comes from a heavy front-end hit. When 2 cars collide head-on, or when a car slams into another at an angle, the front section absorbs a lot of energy. The radiator sits right behind the grille, so it is one of the first things at risk. If the radiator goes, the engine overheats within minutes. The fact that the car kept running tells you the radiator survived, but the hit must have been hard enough to make it feel like it would not. Another key moment in the damage came from a direct hit with another driver, a center impact that could have ended the race. A center hit is dangerous because it transfers force straight through the core of the car. Unlike a glancing blow, which spreads energy along the side, a direct hit pushes everything inward. That can bend the frame, damage internal components, and even affect steering alignment. The driver thought the race was over at that point, which says a lot about how severe it felt. But again, the Crown Vic proved its strength and kept moving. The overall condition of the car after the race shows multiple layers of damage rather than one single incident. This is important because it reflects the nature of the Freedom 500. It is not about avoiding contact, it is about surviving it. The car likely took more than 10 separate impacts throughout the race. Some were lighter taps, but at least 3 to 5 were strong enough to leave visible marks or cause concern about mechanical failure. When you look at the body panels, the rear quarter is one of the most damaged areas. That makes sense because in tight racing, cars often get hit from behind or pushed into the wall. The rear quarter panel is also more exposed compared to the front, which has more structural support. Replacing or repairing that panel would take significant work. In normal conditions, even a single dent in that area might cost a few $100s to fix, but here the damage is spread across a large section, making it more complex. The crowd reaction during the race adds another layer to the story. At one point, 2 drivers were side by side, door handle to door handle, with the crowd fully engaged. That kind of racing almost guarantees contact. When cars are that close, even a slight miscalculation can lead to rubbing or hitting. The fact that the car stayed competitive and finished 4th out of 27 shows that performance was not completely lost, despite all the damage. Finishing 4th in a field of 27 cars means beating 23 other drivers, which is impressive considering the condition of the vehicle. Statistically, that places the car in roughly the top 15% of the field. Achieving that with heavy body damage, missing parts and worn tyres highlights how durable and forgiving these cars are in this type of racing environment. Another interesting detail is that debris was still visible on the track even after the race. That tells you how rough the event was overall, not just for one car. When parts are left on the track, it means multiple cars experience damage severe enough to break components off. This could include mirrors, trim pieces, or even parts of bumpers. In a controlled race, the track is usually kept clean, but here the chaos is part of the experience. The car's ability to keep running despite everything comes down to its design. Crown Vics were originally built as police cars, which means they were designed for durability, long use, and the ability to handle stress. They have strong frames, simple mechanical systems, and parts that can take abuse. In a race like this, those qualities become very clear. While a more delicate sports car might have failed after the first major hit, this car absorbed multiple impacts and still crossed the finish line. Another thing to consider is how the driver adapted to the damage. Losing a mirror, dealing with worn tyres, and handling a car that has taken multiple hits requires constant adjustment. The steering might feel different, the balance of the car changes, and braking can become less predictable. Managing all of that while still racing at high speed is not easy. It takes experience and quick decision-making. There is also a mental side to this. After taking a few heavy hits, many drivers might back off or become more cautious. But in this race, the approach was to keep pushing. That mindset is part of what makes events like this so intense. Every driver knows the risk, but they continue to compete aggressively. By the end of it all, the damage report is not just about scratches and missing parts. It is a record of everything the car went through. Every mark tells a story of contact, pressure, and survival. The blue streaks from the wall, the missing mirror, the worn tyres, and the heavy impacts all combine into a single picture. What stands out the most is that the car did not give up. Even after multiple moments where it seemed like the race might be over, it kept moving. That is the defining feature here. Not perfection, not cleanliness, but resilience. In simple terms, this Crown Vic took at least 5 major hits, more than 10 minor contacts, lost 1 key component, wore down its tyres almost completely, and still finished in the top 4 out of 27. That is the kind of performance that explains why these cars are chosen for this type of racing again and again. At the end of the day, the damage might look rough, but it also proves something important. The car did exactly what it was supposed to do. It survived one of the toughest racing environments, stayed competitive, and made it to the finish. That is what really matters in a race like this. Now, before you leave, feel free to comment down your thoughts, and while you're down there, make sure to smash that subscribe button as well.